The Walt Disney Company is getting rights to the NFL Network, as well as basically having control of all fantasy football across America. That's a huge deal, a big win, and the shiniest thing that Bob Iger could bring to the table yet again for an earnings report. But it's probably there to hide something far, far scarier, and that is Disney revenues in the latest quarter did not even keep up with inflation. Hello folks, welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we break down what you need to know in entertainment. And yes, much of that industry is breaking down, but new growth is on the way. Disney hopes that you'll see them as a company that's positioned well for that. Did they do it? Will they succeed? Folks, let's dive in. And all we need here on this channel is a like button click. All right, we're going to go to NFL.com to start this one off. Last earnings call for Disney, what did they do? They told you that they were going to build a brand new Disney theme park in Abu Dhabi. And it was weeks later, after what we surmised it correctly that day. But weeks later, it was confirmed that no, it's not a Disney park necessarily. Disney's not going to own it. Disney's not going to operate it. Disney is licensing their stuff to a company in the Middle East to build a very small indoor theme park that will be Disney themed, but not Disney owned or operated. This time, the jangly thing that Disney has out there ringing is what Jonas J. Campbell yesterday, I believe, predicted, that they're going to get the NFL Network. He was predicting that they were going to do something with sports. We were hearing that behind the scenes, but here's what we've got. It says ESPN, a subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company and the National Football League, today announced a non-binding agreement, interesting, under which ESPN will acquire NFL Network and certain other media assets owned and controlled by the NFL. This is a sticking point. We'll come back to it, including NFL's linear red zone channel and NFL fantasy. And that last part, I believe, is why the stock may go up significantly. Now, no financial advice, folks. Don't take anything I say and make a decision financially based upon this. But the NFL fantasy thing is a big deal. I'll explain in just a few. In exchange for a 10% equity stake in ESPN, which is basically free. I mean, Disney got away. This is a heck of a play. You got to give it to them. They're terrible on the creative side. They're terrible on the political side. But when it comes to buying stuff, making a deal, and the PR game, Disney's unmatched. Bob Iger is unmatched in that area. And so both things can be true at the same time. They have terribly mismanaged their parks. Their movies are failing. Disney Plus has not done what they thought it would be. It's not a Netflix competitor. It might be a competitor to something like Paramount Plus. But if you want somebody who can make a deal, or if you want somebody who can spin that deal for the most advantage, Bob Iger's the guy. We're going to come back to this in just a few, and I'll explain the fantasy football. You know what? That's too long away. I'll just go ahead and explain it right now. As we get ready to read this article out of The Hollywood Reporter by Alex Weprin, who has done a phenomenal job on this. The fantasy deal is a big deal because Disney wants to integrate fantasy sports directly into their big ESPN app. That's the big push. By having total ownership now of the official NFL fantasy leagues, they're going to merge those with the ESPN version. And within 2 years, the default place that basically everybody is going to go for fantasy football is going to be ESPN/Disney. That is a massive win. The amount of money there is incredible. It's amazing. And so this deal is on par. If you guys remember back about 20 years ago, in fact, I think it's exactly 20 years ago. Wow. If you remember 20 years ago when Electronic Arts managed to pull off that deal where they had the exclusive rights for video games for the NFL, and that knocked out, at the time, Take-Two Interactive's NFL 2K, which I think the last one of those was NFL 2K5, right? That game had surpassed Madden in sales. EA freaked out, spent billions of dollars, which was even more back then, to get exclusive rights to the NFL. And Madden became the default NFL game. Nobody else could compete with it. It's been that way for 20 years. And that deal has been worth, billions and billions and billions of dollars. I put it on the same level as this. Having the exclusive NFL fantasy, that's huge. And then they're going to incorporate that into betting as well, right? That's what they're going to do. Okay, let's go to the Hollywood Reporter. We've got the blockbuster deal with the NFL and a new deal with the WWE are key pieces to the ESPN part of Disney's streaming strategy. What you need to know is that I'm very interested in what's going on with Disney. And people are going to break this down for you. But ultimately, I believe that the investor decisions for the next days are going to come from the NFL. And you can say, well, how did Disney do this? You can say, why did the NFL do this? But they did it, okay? But let's break down the smaller parts of this. The Walt Disney Company saw its revenues and profits rise in its latest quarter as it prepares to launch a new streaming push built around ESPN and Hulu. And that is technically true. The company reported its fiscal Q3 earnings Wednesday morning, reporting revenue of $23.7 billion, up 2% from a year ago. Now, this is where, if you're an investor, or if you're somebody interested in how Disney's really doing, this is the temperature that you're taking of the patient, okay? Now, we can say that the patient's going to get way better, and we do this every single quarter with Bob Iger and company. They have become masters at telling you something shiny is just around the bend. They have become masters at the Marvel strategy of giving you a subpar movie, and then at the end credit scenes saying, but you won't believe how good this next one will be. That's what Disney is doing here with the ESPN NFL purchase. And you could say, and I think legitimately so this time, like this is a much bigger deal in my mind than the Abu Dhabi announcement. That was a bunch of fluff that tricked a lot of people. This one has stuff to it. But if you're taking the temperature of a company, revenue would be the temperature. And the temperature here is not good. Now, I know that they're telling you it's up 2%, right? $23.7 billion in revenue for Disney, up 2%. What you need to know is that doesn't keep up with inflation. So if Disney had just taken every single dollar they earned last time and put that in the bank and said, we're not going to spend, we're not going to do anything. And I'm not saying that this is possible. We're in the realm of theory right now. But if they'd taken every single dollar they made in revenue last quarter and thrown it into the bank, put it in the stock market, in S&P 500, okay? They would have outpaced this by far. But if they had just left the cash sitting there for the past year, okay? So like if you take a year and you just let it sit there, you'll outpace this 2%. Because inflation since 2024 to 2025 is about 2.8%. So almost a full percentage point they didn't keep up with just cash, just sitting there on the floor. That's not good. And that's why Bob Iger and company needed to have something with the NFL to save the day. It says segment operating income of $4.6 billion, up 8% from a year ago. Now, segment operating income, how do you get that? And I know some people out there don't know what that is, and we don't have time this morning. We're in a little bit of a race here to get this out before the earnings call proper, where Bob Iger is going to take questions. Some of you are going to say, well, how do you get segment operating income up 8% if your total revenue is 2%? The answer to that is you cut costs. So there's a lot of cost cutting happening here, and you'll notice that there's no statement that Disney is going to spend on the NFL. That's why this is such a fascinating and marvelous, honestly. You can dislike Bob Iger, you can dislike Disney. It's a marvelous deal for them to pull off. I mean, it's almost a heist to get them to give you the entire rights to fantasy football for the NFL and ESPN, which, I mean, that's it. That's it. You are the default fantasy football. And what's fantasy football all across America worth? Gosh, crazy money. And they did it for a 10% equity stake in ESPN. Wowza. All right, let's get into the other numbers, though. Disney's direct-to-consumer revenue increased by 6% to $6.2 billion, with operating income rising to $346 million. The company added 2.6 million Disney Plus and Hulu subscribers, with essentially all that growth coming from international markets. Okay, so Disney is stagnant domestically. We've said that. You know that. They rose by 2.6 million Disney Plus and Hulu subscribers internationally, and that's almost nothing. By the way, that's splitting two different subscriber services. So maybe 1 million went to Disney Plus, maybe 1.6 million went to Hulu, and a lot of that may have been through carriage deals where you automatically get subscribed to this stuff, okay? So increasing by 6%, that's fine. Disney expects to add about 10 million subscribers this quarter, thanks largely to its new deal with Charter Communications, which bundles the product with its TV packages, which again means that's not people choosing to subscribe. That's people who are just like, they own Charter, so therefore it becomes part of the stuff that they receive. So, it is what it is. And by the way, I would say that this 6% increase is probably mostly due, and I don't have the numbers, right? They don't go into this granularity. But that's probably mostly due to the password sharing crackdown that Disney's doing. So Disney's earning division had revenue of $10.7 billion, up 1%. An operating income of $1 billion, down 15% due to declines in the linear TV networks offset by the growth in streaming and some improvements in content licensing. I'm going to disagree with this. It's down 15% because of the box office. And they're using linear TV to hide that. In fact, in Disney's own earnings report, I'm told that it's going to say that the drop is because of how well Inside Out 2 performed last year. They just couldn't keep up with that level of excellence. It's like, no, you had Lilo and Stitch. It didn't perform exactly as well, but it performed pretty darn well. The problem for Disney is at the box office, they had 2 hits last year, Deadpool and Wolverine and Inside Out 2. And this year, they only have Lilo and Stitch. And Disney used to have 7 or 8 hits a year. So that's why they're down 15%. In the experiences division, that's the Disney parks and cruise lines. The opening of Universal's Epic Universe did not appear to phase Disney, with revenue surging 8% to $9.1 billion and operating income rising by 13% to $2.5 billion. All right. So how do you get, again, folks, how do you get your operating income to go up by 13%, but revenue is only going up by 8%? You do that by cutting costs. So when you see the parade out there, the Starlight Parade at Magic Kingdom, and you say, well, why are there no performers? Because Disney is cutting every cost they can. And how do you get revenue to surge 8% if attendance is down? And we've been covering this attendance issue, and Disney's not going to probably come out and say, oh, yeah, our attendance is doing this, because then, well, the curtain would be pulled back, right? So how do you get the revenues to go up if attendance is down? Well, take a look at this from all ears. Earlier this year, it says new study reveals food prices at Disney World have increased 31% over the last 6 years. What Disney is doing, it appears to me, is they are increasing their revenues at the parks while attendance goes down by absolutely nickel and diming people to death. And that's working for now. I don't think it's going to work much longer. And the idea that Epic Universe was going to crash Disney in this quarter, that was never going to happen, because Epic Universe opened with a cap on attendance because it's brand new and they want to make sure that everybody had a good time. They're getting their operations down pat. So the idea that Epic Universe was going to damage Disney World in 2025 at the first quarter that it opens, no way. Now, Epic Universe has increased tourism to Orlando by an entire 10%. So that's coming. But, you know, this is not a narrative you should buy into, that because Epic Universe in its first 3 months did not diminish Disney's revenue in Orlando. That's not a sign of what's to come. What is a sign to come is that Disney's revenue seems to not be keeping pace with its profits, and that signals that they're cutting. All right, folks, one last thing I want to show you here. If we go to Alex Sherman, who does a wonderful job. Alex Sherman, and this is where we get into a little bit of the Abu Dhabi stuff again. Because remember, Abu Dhabi gets announced, the Disney park gets announced, and, oh, it's a brand new Disney park. We're going to do a Disney park. And they released the concept art, and it looks like it's a beautiful, lush jungle, you know. No, it's a little tiny indoor park that's going to be run and operated. It's just licensed Disney stuff, right? It's a giant Disney store with some rides attached. Well, here's where we get into, you know, if you look behind the NFL thing, you start to see there's a bit of a facade. Alex Sherman says, as I first reported a couple of weeks ago, the deal isn't for all of NFL media. That includes ownership of Red Zone. ESPN will own, quote unquote, broad rights to the Red Zone brand, but not the underlying asset. The NFL will continue to own and operate its retained media businesses, including properties such as NFL Films and key fan-facing platforms such as NFL Plus, NFL.com, the NFL Podcast Network, the NFL Fast Channel, and the official sites for the league's 32 clubs. It will also continue to own, operate, and produce NFL Red Zone and retain the rights to distribute NFL Red Zone digitally. So what's going on with the ESPN thing? Well, folks, what's really happening here is the fantasy football. There's a lot being said. And having NFL Network is fine. That's fine. But you got to know, the big deal, if you really know what's up, and that's what our job here is, to help you know what's up. The big deal is that Disney has pulled off a serious coup in the sports world, gobbling up all, basically, of fantasy league football. And that's worth a lot of money when you combine it with what they want to do with the ESPN app, which is gambling. You combine all of NFL fantasy sports with gambling on the ESPN app, and you got big money on the way. Would Uncle Walt have wanted it that way with his company? That's a different question. Folks, this has been a very wordy and deep video, and it's not as shiny and polished as usual. We're getting this out as fast as we can to you. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope this explains what's going on with Disney. It's another shiny, shiny thing, this time with a bit more substance to the bling than the last quarters, but they've become masters of showing you something that, ooh, you just got to hang on to that stock. Ooh, you just got to hang on to it. Don't look at our revenues. They didn't keep up with inflation. All right, folks, that's the video for the day. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.